Operations against the Mari and Ketran tribes. Operations against the Mari and Ketran tribes, also known as the Mari Punitive Expedition, was the British name for a punitive expedition carried out against the Mari and Ketran tribes of Balochistan, British India between February and April 1918. The Mari rose against the British authorities around 18 February, encouraged by rumors that the British were short of manpower due to the First World War. British attempts at conciliation were repulsed, and on 20 February, a major attack was made by 3,000 Mari upon the British post at Gumbaz. This attack was repulsed by a much smaller British force that inflicted heavy losses upon the Mari. A subsequent withdrawal of British forces from Kolu and its occupation by the Mari led the Ketrans to join the rising. The town of Barkhan was occupied by Mari Ketran forces, and raids were made upon villages in the Sibai and Loralai districts. Railways in the area were also attacked. The British assembled the Mari Field Force of British Army and British Indian Army troops under Major General Richard Wapshare to combat the rising. Two columns under Brigadier Generals T.H. Hardy and Philip Miles went on the offensive into territory occupied by the tribes. Miles inflicted a heavy defeat upon a Mari Ketran force at Fort Monroe on 15 March and then captured Barkhan, ending Ketran involvement in the rising. Hardy defeated a large Mari force at Hadibi on 3 April and afterwards, assisted by bombing by the Royal Flying Corps, captured the Mari capital of Kahan. The Mari Sardar Bucks Mari surrendered to the British on 8 April. The campaign caused a significant reduction in tax revenue from the area and damage to private and government property. A council of elders was assembled after the campaign which recommended compensation payments be made by the Mari and the imprisonment of members of both tribes. The rising inspired rebellions by the Mengal and Gurdnari tribes, who killed their own Sardars, and by the Musakhal. Background: Balochistan, in modern Pakistan, came under indirect British rule in 1839 through the Khan of Kalat. The 1876 Treaty of Kalat brought the province and its tribes under direct control as part of British India. The Mari tribe live in Mari Bugti country and are one of the most northeasterly of the Baloch peoples. Mari country, at an elevation of 803,000 meters, 2,609,800 ft, is mountainous and difficult to traverse with few passes. It is surrounded by the flatter land of the Sibai and Indus basins. Their hereditary leader was known as the Sardar, though often referred to by the British as the Mari Nawab. He was assisted by a number of chief men, also usually hereditary. The Mari Bugti country was administered by the British from Sibai district. The Mari were traditionally raiders and slavers, though these activities were somewhat curtailed under British rule. In 1840, the Mari had ambushed the communications lines of Sir John Keene's army fighting in the First Anglo-Afghan War. A subsequent punitive expedition against the Mari was repulsed with heavy British losses. The Mari supported the British in a war with the Bugti in 1845, but in the following decades again came into conflict with the British. British officers John Jacob and Robert Groves Sandeman did much work to keep the peace, but in 1880 the Mari attacked British lines of communication during the Second Anglo-Afghan War. Expedition by British Brigadier General Charles MacGregor led to the submission of the Mari and the payment of fines, after which there was peace until the 1910s. The Ketran tribe are of mixed Baloch and Pathan origin, and their territory lies to the north of the Mari, and their only other neighbors are Pathans. Their leader, the Tamandar, was based at the capital Barkhan. Their lands consist of a series of fertile valleys. By the late 19th century they were closely linked with the Maris, Bugtis, and Ladharis. The British authorities passed messages to the Ketrans via the Ladharis. They were described as a peaceful tribe in 1879, not noted for raiding. They sometimes came into conflict with the British for harboring fugitives and accepting stolen property. Prelude. During the early 20th century, the Mari had become more restive. The First World War, a major draw on British manpower, began in 1914. The Mari carried out a series of raids in 1915 and 1916 for which they received light punishment from the British administration. In July 1917, members of the tribe quarreled with men from the neighboring Bugti, resulting in the deaths of 6 Mari and 4 Bugti, and the wounding of 2 Mari and 3 Bugti. The quarrel was resolved by a jirga, a traditional meeting of tribal leaders in November. In August 1917, the Mari quarreled with the Ketrans, leading to the deaths of 2 Mari and 3 Ketrans. In October 1917, the Mari Sardar Mir Karabuk's Mari visited Quetta to pay homage to the Viceroy of India, Frederick Thesiger, 1st Viscount Chelmsford. The Sardar was publicly rebuked by Chelmsford over his tribe's recent behavior. During the visit, the Sardar and his chiefs seem to have been influenced by rumors, common at the time, that the British were losing battles in the First World War and were withdrawing troops from India. This impression was strengthened by British attempts to recruit men from the Baloch tribes. The Sardar reasoned that the British must be very desperate if they sought recruits from his tribe for the first time. The Sardar refused a request made at Sabai by the British political agent Colonel Alan McConaghy. This led to increasing tension between the two parties, and the Sardar sought support from other tribes. The decision to oppose the British may have originated with the Baijirani section of the tribe, who were prominent in the subsequent rising. The rising against British rule began around 18 February 1918. On 19 February, McConaghy, with 50 sowars of the 3rd Skinner's Horse, arrived at Gumbaz, a pass in Mari country, where a British post and garrison was maintained. He found that the Mari tribal levies had deserted, and the pass had been blocked by a force of tribesmen who had cut the telegraph line to Kolu. McConaghy sent the Sardar of the Loni tribe to the Mari force to invite their Sardar to a conference, but he was fired upon and wounded, after which McConaghy withdrew. At 1:30 am on 20 February, the British post at Gumbaz was attacked by a force of Mari estimated as being 3,000 strong, equipped with scaling ladders under the command of Mir Qudadad Mari. The British garrison of 75 sowars, 2 parties under Lieutenant Colonel Gowson and Lieutenant Harold Watson, together with a number of Indian Imperial Police officers, defended the post for the next 6 hours. After hard fighting, during which the perimeter wall was overrun, the Mari withdrew just before dawn. The British estimated the Mari loss at 125 killed and 135 wounded, though when reviewed at the end of the war this was considered a significant underestimate. The British recovered 77 dead and wounded tribesmen from the battlefield the following morning. There were a number of policemen and civil service revenue collectors at Kolu who were evacuated to Barkin. Government buildings in the town were afterwards burnt by the Mari, despite further attempts at conciliation by McConaghy. The Ketran tribe then joined the rising, and Barkin was reinforced with men from the frontier constabulary and Punjab levies. Despite this, the British commander at Barkin, a police officer, determined that the town could not be defended and withdrew his men to Dera Ghazi Khan. The Mari and Ketrans then entered Barkin, looted the government treasury and burnt the administrative buildings. Raids were also made upon Fort Monroe, which was partly burnt, and upon the inhabitants of Sabai and Lorelei districts. Hindu-owned Bunia were particularly targeted, and many camels and cattle were stolen. Attacks upon the Sindh-Pishin and Balan Pass railways led to the British placing garrisons at each station. In one attack on a goods train at Cachh, 6 Indians and 1 European were killed and a further 3 Indians wounded. The railway station at Harnai was a major resupply point for the British during the operations. Punitive expedition. The attacks on Kolu caused the British to consider sending a punitive expedition to punish the Mari and Ketran tribes, and such an expedition was ordered by the Government of India on 28 February. Major General Richard Wapshire was placed in overall command of the expedition and gathered troops to form 2 columns, one at Dukey under Brigadier General Thomas Henry Hardy, and one at Rackney under Brigadier General Philip Miles. Miles' column was also known as the Dera Ghazi Khan column after the district that it operated in. The whole was known as the Mari Punitive Expedition or the Mari Field Force. The British were initially under-equipped for an operation in Mari territory. Lacking tents, they had to improvise bivouacs against the cold and rain. Towards the end of the campaign the weather grew hot and the force endured conditions of 110 deg F-43 deg C in the shade. Miles' column included infantry from the 55th Coke's Rifles and was reinforced by the Peshawar Battery of the Indian Mountain Artillery under Major, for example, Campbell on 9 March. Detachments of these units advanced to Fort Monroe on 13 March where, 2 days later, they were attacked by a force of 3,000 Mari and Ketrans, armed largely with swords. The Mari occupied a number of bungalows as well as a hill overlooking the British position. An attack made by 2 companies of Coke's Rifles, with supporting artillery fire at a range of 1,700 yards 1,600 m, cleared the bungalows. The hill was cleared with artillery fire alone, some 32 shells being sufficient to cause the Mari to withdraw. Mari losses in this action were 21 killed and wounded. Miles, whose column was around brigade strength, advanced the 50 miles 80 km to Barken, the capture of which effectively ended Ketran involvement in the fighting. Miles afterwards moved around 18 miles 29 km southwest to Vitakri, meeting no opposition. The majority of Ketrans formally submitted to the British by 3 April and Miles' force withdrew to Dera Ghazi Khan on 20 April. Hardy's column advanced through Mari-held territory, burning their villages and crops and driving off livestock. He reached Kolu on 23 March, having met no resistance. On 3 April Hardy's column reached Hadi B, where they met a force of 1,200 Mari, which were attacked and forced to retreat after losing 70-80 men killed and 100 wounded. The next day Hardy moved on Maywand, by which time he considered that the main threat was over and the Mari limited to only minor raids against his men. The Royal Flying Corps, despite being hindered by poor weather, engine problems, and mountainous terrain, operated with Hardy's column carrying out bombing and strafing attacks and aerial reconnaissance up to 20 miles 32 km in advance of the British forces. The unit's commander, Captain George Ralston Travis, during a bombing raid was forced to land in Mari-held territory and walk the 21 miles 34 km to Hardy's column. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for his contributions to the campaign. Travis' unit repeatedly bombed the Mari capital Kahan with 9 Royal Aircraft Factory BE-3 aircraft, which helped induce the surrender of the tribe. Hardy occupied Kahan without resistance, and on 8 April Kar Bucks Mari surrendered, marking the formal end of the British combat operations. The surrender was reported in the international press on 22 April and formally announced at Kahan on 2 May and at Barken on 7 May. Aftermath and impact. At the end of the campaign, the Mari estimated their losses at 300 killed and 700 wounded, a significant proportion of their total male population of around 12,500. The campaign had a number of negative effects for the British. Tax revenues for Sibai district, affected by the conflict, flooding and grasshopper swarms, were down by 74,000 rupees on the previous year. Government-issued agricultural loan repayments were also reduced. The fighting threatened the grazing grounds in the Sibai district, so the British authorities permitted villagers to graze livestock in the state forest. Because the horses were moved during breeding season, there was a reduction in the number of foals produced at Sibai for the Army Remount Service. The camels of the expedition caused considerable damage to olive trees at Sanjawi, Tuvekan and Harnai. The additional levies raised to protect the railway cost the British 11,837 rupees. At the campaign's conclusion, a council of elders, led by the Wazir of Las Bilan, met at Harnai to decide peace terms. The council was attended by representatives of the Mari and Ketran tribes, who were said to be in a penitent mood. The council concluded that the rising had resulted from a feeling of self-importance among the Mari and Ketran tribes, with the immediate trigger being the rumored reduction in British manpower. The council made a number of recommended actions against the two tribes, which were approved by the British authorities. A financial penalty, totaling 558,580 rupees, as compensation for damage to British government and private property was levied on the tribes, due for repayment in 4 installments over the following years. The final Ketran repayment was made in the 1920-21 financial year, though the final Mari repayment was not made. The tribes also lost 75 breech-loading rifles and the land taken by the Royal Flying Corps for use as aerodromes, which the tribes were required to maintain at their expense. The council recommended that 9 Mari and 41 Ketrans be imprisoned as punishment, and that the Mari pay the costs for construction of a new road through their territory. The Balochistan Agency had recommended this due to deficiencies in communications during the expedition. The Ketran prisoners received sentences of imprisonment ranging from 3 months to 5 years. The Mari prisoners were all released on 18 January 1919 in recognition of good behavior of the tribe, with the number of robbery and cattle theft offenses both considerably reduced. A jirga to resolve the August 1917 Mari-Ketran dispute, which had been postponed because of the expedition, was held in August 1918. The Mari-Ketran rising led to other acts of rebellion against the British. The Sardar and some of the chief men of the Mengal and Gurgnari part of the Jehalawan tribes were killed by their own men. The excuse was that both leaders had agreed to provide recruits to the British, but both men were unpopular within their tribes for their attempts to curb raiding activities. The Musakhal, a Pashtun tribe located north of Ketran territory, also rose in March 1918 but were subdued by units of the Mari Field Force in cooperation with militiamen from Jab. The rest of Balochistan was quiet during this time, and the major leaders, such as the Khan of Kalat, pledged their continuing loyalty to the British. Indeed, British targets for recruitment from the region were actually exceeded. Many units of the Mari Field Force, including the South Lancashire Regiment, Kent Cyclist Battalion, the Peshawar Mountain Battery, Bengal Sappers and Miners, the Bombay Sappers and Miners, and the 2nd King Edward's Own Gurkha Rifles, the Sirmoor Rifles, were also deployed in the 1919 Third Anglo-Afghan War. In his official dispatches at the end of the Mari punitive expedition, Wapshire mentioned the good work of Hardy and Miles during the war and that of the Indian government agent Henry Dobbs. Wapshire also thanked Khan Mahmud Roman II of Kalat and other Indian leaders for their contribution of gifts for the comfort of his troops. The Khan had donated 4,000 rupees to aid the sick and wounded soldiers of the expeditionary force. Wapshare was honored with appointment to Companion of the Order of the Star of India for his war service, George V.'s 15 June 1918 birthday honours, and on the same day was promoted to lieutenant general. Hardy was promoted to major general in May 1918, backdated to 3 December 1917. Mary leader Kar Bux Mary's grandson Kar Baksh Mary, named in his honour, became a nationalist Baloch politician. British forces involved. Elements of the following forces are known to have served during the operations against the Mari and Ketran tribes. Those units marked with a dagger plus were awarded the Battle Honour Balochistan 1918 for their participation in the campaign. British Army. South Lancashire Regiment plus 1st Battalion, a regular Army infantry unit. The regiment chose to bear the battle honour on their colours. Kent Cyclist Battalion plus a Territorial Force bicycle infantry unit. The battalion chose to bear the battle honour on their colours. Indian Establishment, Royal Flying Corps RFC Aerial Support. After 1 April the RFC was separated from the British Army as the Royal Air Force. British Indian Army. 3rd Skinner's Horse plus Horse-Mounted Cavalry. 10th Duke of Cambridge's Own Lancers Hodson's Horse-Mounted Cavalry. Bahawalpur Mounted Rifles Camel-Mounted Infantry. Peshawar Mountain Battery plus Mountain Artillery. Bengal Sappers and Miners plus Engineers. Bombay Sappers and Miners plus Engineers. 81st Pioneers plus Pioneers. The battle honour was awarded to the Madras Pioneers, into which this unit was amalgamated in 1922. 12th Pioneers and 107th Pioneers plus Pioneers. The battle honour was awarded to the Bombay Pioneers, into which these units were amalgamated in 1922. 55th Coke's Rifles Frontier Force plus Infantry. The battle honour was awarded to the 13th Frontier Force Rifles, into which this unit was amalgamated in 1922. 2nd King Edward's Own Gurkha Rifles, the Sirmoor Rifles plus 2nd Battalion Infantry. 4th Gurkha Rifles plus Infantry. 5th Gurkha Rifles Frontier Force 3rd Battalion Infantry.